Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, we will attempt to answer the grand question, is the CFA worth it? And short answer, it depends. And I know, I hate that answer too, and that is why we will be exploring the pros and cons of the CFA, as well as the alternatives to taking the CFA, and whether or not the CFA is likely to be or not to be the right next step for you. And I also want to be as open as I can from the beginning. I am personally pursuing the CFA. I passed Level I and Level II last year in 2021, and this year I will be taking CFA Level III very soon actually, this August, so I am very excited for that.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
And whilst I'm really happy with my own decision to pursue the CFA, I definitely think that there are situations where I would not recommend someone to take the CFA, and we will touch on that later in this video. So typically, the CFA program is pursued by people with a background in finance, accounting, economics, or business, but a finance background is not at all required to pursue the CFA. However, to get your CFA charter, you will need to pass all 3 exams naturally, and you will also need 4,000 hours of professional work experience completed in a minimum of 36 months. And these hours must be related to the investment decision-making process or produce a product that adds value to that process. And this definitely sounded really confusing to me at first, but really most jobs in finance or investments will qualify towards these hours. So if you do want to pursue the CFA charter, first make sure that you actually do want to work in finance or investments at least for a few years. And now that the basics are out of the way, let's get into the real cost of the CFA. And I'm not just talking about cost in terms of money, I'm also talking about cost in terms of your own time and energy. And so starting out with the monetary costs, depending on when you register, you can pay anywhere from $2,100 to $3,600 total to take all 3 levels, assuming that you pass each exam the first time. Then add the $450 or $350 enrollment fee, and the total CFA exam fees range from $2,550 to $3,950. And again, this is assuming that you pass all 3 exams the first time. So the CFA is a little bit pricey. However, if you do work in finance, particularly in financial services or investments, some employers will actually cover the expenses for you to take the CFA. That was personally the case with my own employer, so if you do want to take the CFA, it's definitely worth asking your manager, just to see if your company will cover the cost of you taking the CFA. And in addition to that, the CFA Institute actually gives out quite a few scholarships, so it might be worth applying to one of those and see if you can get your exam fees waived. But enough about monetary cost, because the CFA is definitely expensive when it comes to your own time and energy too. So most people that pass the CFA exam spend around 300 hours or a bit more to study for each of the 3 exams. So in total, that is 900 hours plus. And that is assuming that you pass all 3 exams the first time, so you only need to study for each exam once. And let's be honest, 900 hours or more is a lot of time, especially when you probably will be working full-time while studying for the CFA. It is a lot of your free time that you're just saying goodbye to, and it's also a lot of time that you could have spent learning something else. And on top of that, passing all 3 exams the first time actually is not common at all. Using the most recent pass rates I could find, only 7% of test takers pass all 3 CFA exams the first time around. So basically, most people have to pay more than I initially stated and spend more time studying because they just aren't only taking 3 exams, they're taking more because they don't pass all 3 exams the first time. So that's definitely something that you should take into consideration. However, whether or not you pass obviously has a lot to do with your own approach to studying and so on, so you can really help your own odds here. But now that we have explored all the major costs of taking the CFA, let's move on to something more positive and look at all the pros of taking the CFA. So let's start out with the big one. Having the CFA, or even just pursuing the CFA, can really help you stand out to employers and help you get the job that you want or the promotion that you want. I have personally experienced this too when I was applying for jobs early this year. It was pretty obvious to me that a lot of the employers definitely valued the fact that I had already passed the CFA Level I, CFA Level II, and that was something that made me stand out as an applicant. Also, CFA's own website actually has excellent resources when it comes to, in what kinds of jobs having the CFA charter will be helpful. And they state all the common industries and occupations for different CFA charter holders. For example, some of the most typical jobs for CFA charter holders are jobs in portfolio management, research, consulting, and risk management. So definitely when you are thinking about whether or not the CFA is right for you, consider like, are these the types of jobs that you would like to see yourself in the future? Or would you rather work, in another kind of job? Because then maybe the CFA isn't the perfect fit for you. So like, look into this, look into what kind of jobs CFA charter holders have. LinkedIn can also be a great resource here, just like simply looking up people in positions that you hope to be in, in like 10 years or something, and see if a lot of them have CFAs or not. That might be a good indicator for whether or not the CFA charter holder would be a great fit for that job. And similarly, look at all the top sectors that most CFA charter holders work in. So that would be sectors like asset management, private wealth management, commercial banking, investment banking, and insurance. But again, the CFA's website has so much more useful information on this, so I will try to leave some helpful links in the description down below. In addition, CFA's website also highlights other things like compensation, saying that the average base salaries of CFA Institute members and charter holders in 2019 increased at a greater rate year over year than the rate of increase for the general market. Also, just pursuing the CFA in general, like even if you are still really early on in the program, still sends a really positive message to employers that you are committed to this career, that it's something that you're really interested in, and obviously like that's an attitude that employers love. And next, I want to touch on ethics, because the CFA program definitely takes a lot of pride in teaching solid ethics. And even though ethics isn't necessarily like the first topic that comes to mind when you think about what you need to know to work in finance, ethics is really important still, because we have all heard those horrible stories about insider trading and fraud and all of this. And so if you do work in investments, you will be managing other people's capital in one way or another, whether that is wealthy investors' capital or your company's capital or someone else's capital. You will be managing other people's money, and that is obviously a sensitive task that requires a lot of trust to be put in you. So having this kind of trustworthy stamp from being a CFA charter holder can be a really big advantage. And when it then comes to the relevancy of the material that you actually learn from taking all 3 CFA exams, I have personally found that probably 80 or 90% of what I have learned from the 3 CFA exams I have found highly useful and relevant, in my own job and in my own career, like all of that. And so overall, I've been really happy with the kind of things that you learn from the CFA program. I think it tends to be very useful for the most part. However, now to the third part, alternatives, because there are definitely some great alternatives to taking the CFA that I think you should consider before deciding whether or not the CFA is right for you. And the first very popular alternative is the MBA. One of the big problems with an MBA though is that it can be really expensive compared to the CFA. Like if you are studying in the US, for example, doing an MBA can easily be $60,000 for every one of the 2 years. And so that suddenly is a lot more than like the $3,000-4,000 that the CFA might end up costing you. Also, a standard MBA does require you to be a full-time student for 2 years, and so that is 2 years that you will not be having a full-time job and a full-time income. And so obviously that's also a big sacrifice to make, whereas with the CFA, you can keep like your full-time job and study for the CFA at the same time. Obviously though, the MBA does come with a ton of advantages too. For example, the network that you do build when you do an MBA is extremely valuable. And when you are, doing the CFA, it's really like a one-man show for the most part. Like, most people do study for you alone, unless like you actively take initiative to create a study group. This is something that you will be doing alone, and so like you don't get the whole social benefit that you would get from an MBA or any other sort of standard program at a university. And obviously another alternative to the CFA could be like a master's in finance or a related field. And another alternative to the CFA is obviously all the different finance designations that do exist apart from the CFA. I will say though that the CFA is one of the most well-respected and well-known finance designations out there. But that being said, there are definitely a ton of other high-quality finance designations out there. I will try to put some ideas up on the screen too. And there are also a lot of specific finance designations that sort of are a little bit more, specific within a particular topic. And so if you already know exactly what you want to do, one of those might also be a great alternative for you to pursue. So before you decide to take the CFA, I would definitely recommend that you sort of Google around, check out what other finance designations are out there, and if there is another finance designation that is a better fit for you. So basically, I would recommend that you look at your own situation and ask yourself these questions. One, do you already have a finance degree and enough education that the CFA would just be like an unnecessary certification to add? And two, are you interested in the typical jobs and career paths that, most CFA charter holders have, or are you more interested in other types of jobs? And third, are you the type of person that would be okay with completing upwards of 900 hours of studying alone? Because it definitely requires a lot of self-discipline, and it can also be very lonely at times. And so just kind of thinking about whether or not this would be a good way for you to learn or not is a really good idea, because we all learn in different ways. And fourth, do you have time to study for the CFA? That might depend on your family situation, on your work situation, and I would definitely recommend that you pursue the CFA as early in your career as possible, just so you can reap the benefits of having it earlier on. But even more so, I recommend that you don't pursue the CFA until you actually have like the time and energy that it takes. Because if you can, pass all 3 exams the first time around, you will save a lot of money and a lot of time. And so, it's better to wait to a time might actually work with your schedule than to just kind of stress about it and try to get it done as quickly as possible. And lastly, just remember that yes, the CFA is probably going to add value to your profile and teach you something new virtually no matter what. However, there are a lot of other things too that you could spend your time on to add value to your profile or learn something new. And while having the CFA can give you an advantage, not having the CFA probably won't exclude you from any jobs either. And there are tons of extremely successful investment professionals out there, both with and without CFAs, so either way, don't worry too much about it. It really all comes down to what kind of career that you dream about, your own past experiences and education, and what your schedule looks like right now. Obviously, this is a really big topic and it is impossible to cover everything, in like a 10-minute video, but I hope that you still found this video a little bit helpful. And I wish you best of luck on your journey, whether or not that includes pursuing the CFA. Also, if you are interested in study tips on how to best prepare for the CFA exams, I have actually made a video on that, so I will link that up here in case you're interested. And other than that, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, please like and subscribe, and then I will see you next week. Bye guys. It's too far away, I can't reach the camera.